They feel you before they see you. The air bends in ways they cannot name. It thickens, slows, pulls at their attention like a tide drawn to an unseen moon. You have not spoken, you have not moved, but already you've entered them, not the room, them. Their nervous systems spike, reading danger where no weapon glints. Their laughter falters in mid-flight, a note held too long. Someone coughs, eyes darting as if searching for a cause they can't admit aloud. They tell themselves it's nothing, but the body always knows. Once you thought this was shyness, a curse. You wondered why your presence seemed to curdle warmth into a strange, unspoken tension. You thought maybe you carried the wrong smile, the wrong clothes, the wrong face, but time taught you what they would never confess. It isn't you they fear, it's the reflection you force upon them. You walk in and the mirror appears, not the soft mirror of compliments and illusions, but the unflinching one. The kind that strips away charm and self-delusion, leaving only what they've hidden from themselves. In your presence they cannot escape their own outline, and for many that outline is something they've spent a lifetime avoiding. You are not loud, you do not chase, you have no need to announce yourself, but your silence is not absence, it is density, a weight, the kind carried by predators who know they cannot be hunted. You are stillness in a world of frantic noise, and stillness terrifies them. Stillness gives them nowhere to hide. It forces the spotlight inward, where shadows writhe and twist in shapes they swore were gone. They want to smile, they want to hold your gaze, but something ancient in them recoils. Their mind races to protect them with excuses. You must be arrogant, cold, dangerous. They need the story because the truth is harder. You unsettle them without lifting a finger. They have met charm before. They have met charisma. Those are games they know how to play. Charm can be flattered. Charisma can be seduced. But you cannot be moved with those tools. Your presence is not an invitation, it is a test. It tells them without words, I will not bend for you. And this makes you an anomaly in their carefully balanced theater. Every hierarchy, every hidden rule they live by trembles in the silence between your steps. You're not playing their game, and that means the outcome is no longer under their control. That is why they glance at the door the moment you arrive. That is why they exhale in relief when you leave. There is an instinct in all living things, the instinct to measure threat before reason can intervene. Some threats are teeth and claws. Others are patterns, signals, a rhythm that says, I am not prey. You are the latter. It's in your eyes, in the way you do brush to fill the empty spaces with chatter. You carry an economy of movement that says you have nothing to prove. And in a culture addicted to proving, that's heresy. They don't know where you came from, but they know you are not one of them. You've seen it countless times. The subtle shift in posture, the nervous jokes, the way their gaze keeps flicking toward you when they think you're not watching. It's not fascination, it's calculation. They are mapping you the way early hunters map the shape of a predator in the grass. Their mind runs through scenarios. What would I do if they turned on me? They cannot explain why they think it, but they do. Your calm makes them uneasy because calm without submission is power. And here is the truth. They'll never speak. Their fear is not about what you might do to them. It is about what you might reveal about them. Your aura does not simply enter a room. It rearranges the room. It shifts the axis on which every unspoken power dynamic spins. The loud ones grow quieter. The confident ones lose footing. The liars feel the weight of their own voice. And you do this without intention, without demand. It happens because you've stopped chasing acceptance. You have severed the leash they believe everyone wears, and the leashless are always feared. There was a time you didn't notice it. You'd walk into gatherings and feel the weight pressing against your skin, thinking it was your own discomfort, but slowly you began to see the pattern. Different faces, different places, the same undercurrent. They could not meet you without flinching, and when they smiled it was too quick, too forced, a plastered thing designed to hold back the truth seeping through their eyes. You started listening not to their words but to the tremor in the spaces between them. That is where the real conversation always was. You learned to stop trying to make them comfortable. Comfort is a transaction. To comfort them, you would have to dim yourself, to twist your posture until you looked harmless, and you are not harmless. That word is too small for what you are. Harmlessness is a lie they sell to keep the balance tipped in their favor. You have no need for it. Your presence says, I will not harm you, but I will not hide from you either. And that truth alone is enough to make them quake. They will tell stories about you. Not always cruel, but always bent. They will call you aloof, difficult to read, intimidating. What they mean is, I cannot manipulate you in the ways I've learned to manipulate others. They will avoid inviting you into certain conversations, certain circles. They will mistake your quiet for judgment, your distance for disdain. And in a way they're right, but not in the way they think. You do judge, you do disdain. Not the person they pretend to be, but the smallness they choose to live inside. And so you walk into the room, and the shift happens again, like a shadow sliding under the door before the door even opens. It is not magic, it is not mysticism. It is simply the raw, unsoftened signal of someone who does not bow. They feel it because they have bent themselves for so long that the straightness of your spine is blinding. They sense it in the way your eyes rest, not darting, not seeking permission to exist. They sense it in your refusal to match their tempo, to rush your words to fill their void. You are not here to be liked, you are here to be. And in a world where existence itself has been turned into performance, that is enough to make you a danger. You carry with you the proof that their fragile structures of approval and hierarchy are nothing but smoke. You carry the storm in your lungs, and when you breathe, the air remembers it once belonged to the sky. That is why they look at you like that. That is why the laughter dies when you approach. You are the reminder, the one they can't unsee. Would you like me to continue in this exact style for the rest of the section so the full script keeps the same dark cinematic weight? Before you ever learned your first word, before your hands could close into fists or reach for comfort, something was already watching. Not the kind of watching that comes from eyes across a room. This was older, heavier. It lingered in the marrow, etched into your pulse, humming quietly beneath the skin. You were born carrying a weight you couldn't not name, a silent contract signed in a language no one living still speaks. And though the world pretended not to notice, it felt you. It always did. Strangers' eyes would rest on you a second too long, not with recognition but with a faint, inexplicable tension. They would speak to you differently, not softer, not harsher, but with a strange restraint, as if careful not to provoke something they didn't understand. Even as a child you sensed it. You were not walking through the same reality as the others. You came to learn that the contract was not for protection, it was for disruption. You are not here to soothe them, to fit neatly into their story. You are here to fracture them. You are the hairline crack that runs silently through their walls, growing wider with each moment they spend in your presence. You are the splinter in their carefully constructed illusion of who they are. They may smile at you, nod politely, even pretend to welcome you, but deep inside something in them recoils, and you feel it. You always feel it. It's the slight tightening in their voice, the way their laughter suddenly sounds forced, the subtle retreat of their gaze when yours lingers. The contract you carry forces them to see themselves without their armor, without their scripts, without the comfortable masks they've worn for years. This inheritance did not come from choice. It came from blood and breath, from whatever thread binds your existence to the kind of truth most spend their lives avoiding. Some call it energy, others call it instinct. but you know it is older than language. It moves through you like an echo from another era, as if your presence is stitched from the remnants of a forgotten order. The Watchers, the record keepers, the silent architects of consequence. You didn't ask for it, you didn't earn it, and yet it drips from you in every step, every glance, every pause you allow to stretch longer than comfort permits. This is why you have never been invisible, even when you wanted to be. In crowded rooms, even without speaking, your presence lands like a pebble in still water, ripples spreading, unseen yet undeniable. People adjust themselves in your orbit, some leaning closer as if drawn to warmth, others retreating instinctively into shadow. You felt the weight of their interpretation, the false stories they craft to explain the unease they can't name. They'll call you intimidating, arrogant, cold. They'll pretend your silence is emptiness, when in truth it is a blade being quietly unsheathed. And the contract ensures you never forget. Their reactions are not about you. They are about the fracture you awaken. There were times when you mistook this for isolation, when the quiet corridors between you and others felt like exile. You wondered why your laughter never landed the same way theirs did, why your presence made the air thicken, why you seemed to stand outside the shared rhythm of the crowd. You didn't yet know that the distance was part of the design. The contract demands it. Too much familiarity would dull the edge. Too much acceptance would drown out the signal. You are meant to remain just beyond their grasp, close enough to unsettle, far enough to remain unclaimed. In moments of clarity, you felt the raw hum of it, in the eyes of someone who sees you for the first time and instantly flinches. In the tightening silence after you speak the one truth no one dared to voice. In the stillness of a hallway where you wait, not moving, yet somehow controlling the pace of everything around you. That hum is the thread of the contract pulling taut, a reminder that your presence is not casual. You are the trigger for dormant awareness. You are the echo of what they've buried. This is why their fear feels personal, even when they barely know you. They do not fear you in the way prey fears the predator's teeth. They fear the collapse you represent. You are proof that their facade is not airtight, that the parts of themselves they've hidden are still alive, still restless, still clawing at the surface. Your existence is a breach, and breaches demand attention. You've watched the strongest voices falter mid-sentence under your gaze. The most self-assured figures stumble over words they've spoken 1,000 times before. You've seen them retreat into overcompensation, louder tones, overextended smiles, rehearsed charm, anything to avoid acknowledging the tension you awaken. The contract is not about dominance. It is about exposure. It doesn't care whether you stand above them or beside them. It only cares that when you stand anywhere, their masks slip. You have learned to move through this with precision. You do not flaunt it. You do not wield it carelessly. You let it work in silence, because silence is where it sharpens best. Every step you take is another line inked deeper into the ancient terms you live by. You will not be like them. You will not vanish into the comfort of their illusion. You will remain the reminder. It took years for you to stop mistaking the contract for a curse. It took longer still to realize it is neither curse nor gift. It simply is. A design too old to question, too integral to resist. You are not its prisoner. You are its embodiment. And whether you choose to embrace it or deny it, the effect remains the same. The air shifts before you arrive, the unspoken becomes impossible to ignore, and the monsters in the room begin to stir. They don't know why their chest tightens, why the ground feels less stable, why the rhythm of the room faltered. But you do. You've always known. You carry the ancient contract, and every time you walk in, the room remembers it too. They rely on scent more than sight. Predators. They don't need to see you bleed, they just need to feel the tremor in your voice, the hesitation in your step, the subtle tightening of your shoulders when their eyes fix on you. That is how they feed. not on flesh, but on the quiet surrender they coax from their prey. But when you walk in, there is no tremor, no leak in your armor. The air around you does not hum with submission, it hums with something colder, something older. And in that moment they understand, though they may never admit it aloud, you are not food. You never were. Once they would have circled you, tested your edges, pushed until the cracks appeared. They would have drawn out your compliance like venom from a wound, smiling as they stripped you of your certain. But now there is nothing to take. You are not the same creature you were before the long nights, before the betrayals that carved steel into your bones. Fear was a language you spoke fluently once. They could read it in you like scripture. Now it's gone, buried so deep they can't even find the echo. They watch you the way a hunter watches a fire drawn to its light, but wary of stepping too close. Their game depends on imbalance. The moment they feel resistance, they adjust their tactics. Softer words, false warmth, a predator's lullaby meant to lower your guard. But you do not sway. You do not lean forward or back. You remain exactly where you are, like a figure carved from obsidian. Your stillness unnerves them more than defiance ever could. Defiance is loud, predictable. Stillness is unreadable. And in that stillness they begin to feel the pressure of their own reflection staring back at them. Predators are not brave. They are opportunists. Their courage is conditional, a fire that burns only when the wind is in their favor. When they sense fear, they swell with false dominance, convinced of their superiority. When they sense nothing, the fire falters, and in your presence there is nothing for them to grip. No crack to wedge a claw into, no signpost pointing them toward your weakness. They begin to suspect the unthinkable, that the weakness they're searching for may not exist. You have learned something they cannot unlearn. That fear is not merely an emotion, it is a currency. And when you stop spending it, the market collapses. In the silent economy of power, you have gone bankrupt in all the ways they understand, but wealthy in a way they cannot touch. You are no longer an account they can withdraw from. Every test, every subtle provocation, every needling comment designed to make you flinch only ricochets back into their own unease. The longer they linger near you, the more their certainty frays. There are moments when their mask slips, fleeting cracks in the performance, a twitch at the corner of their mouth, a quick swallow before speaking, the way their gaze skitters for a heartbeat before returning to you. These are not mistakes. They are tells, small ruptures revealing that their confidence was never self-made. It was always borrowed from the fear of others, and you have stopped paying the debt. You know the moment the shift happened. It is not loud, it is not announced, but you feel it, the subtle withdrawal, like a tide receding. They still speak, they still smile, but the cadence is different now. They are no longer reaching toward you to take, they are pulling back to protect themselves. And though they may keep their posture tall, something in their eyes betrays them. The predator has become aware of its own vulnerability. You do not move to exploit it. You do not need to. This is not about domination. It is about truth. They have seen something they cannot unsee. A presence that does not bend. A spirit that does not leak fear into the atmosphere. They know you could, if you wished, dismantle them in silence. And that knowing is enough. There is an ancient weight to this dynamic, older than language, older than the games of power humans play in glass offices and shadowed corridors. In ancient hunts, prey that stood its ground was unpredictable. It could wound, it could kill, it could turn the hunt into a funeral. That instinct has not left them. Deep in the animal memory of their nervous system, your lack of fear registers as danger, not the danger of a desperate cornered thing, but the danger of something that has seen death, walked with it, and returned untouched. You have been marked by your own trial. The betrayals you endured were not mere stories, they were rites. They burned away the soft edges, seared out the compliance that predators feed on. You have walked through rooms dripping with manipulation, through corridors thick with hidden knives, and you emerged not wounded, but sharpened. Now, your silence is not absence. It is the quiet of a drawn bow. They will test you less often now, not because they respect you. Respect requires them to admit your strength aloud, and that is a confession they will never make. No, they will test you less because each attempt feeds their own discomfort. Predators are not built to sit in uncertainty. They need reaction to feel alive, and you have become the void that swallows their hunger whole. In your presence, their instincts misfire. The tricks that worked on everyone else, the smile that disarms the sudden feigned vulnerability, the escalating push until someone folds, all crumble into dust when they meet the steel in your stillness. They cannot read you, they cannot predict you, and a predator who cannot predict is no longer a predator. They are just another frightened animal, blinking in the dark. This is the unspoken truth they will never voice. You terrify them, not because of what you might do, but because of what you do not do. They cannot provoke you into playing their game, and they cannot walk away without feeling the echo of that failure in their chest. They will remember the way you looked at them, not hostile, not warm, but clear. Clear in the way a mountain is clear. Clear in the way a deep black ocean is clear. It is the clarity of something that has no need to prove itself, and in that clarity, they see the outline of their own smallness. And when you finally turn your attention away, when your gaze shifts to something else, it is not mercy, it is dismissal. The hunt is over before it began, and they know it. You walk away untouched, leaving them to sit in the silence you've left behind. A silence heavy with the knowledge that you never feared them, and that you never will. They cannot look at you for long. Their eyes slip away, not because you've done anything, but because you've done nothing. You simply exist, and yet in that stillness, you become unbearable to them. Not because your presence is loud or invasive, but because it is exact. It lands on them with precision, like the weight of a judgment they've tried their whole life to avoid. Every mask they've crafted, every little story they've told themselves about who they are, begins to fray under your gaze. You do not strip them bare. They do that themselves. All you've done is stand there breathing the same air, letting the silence linger long enough for their own reflection to emerge. They call you cold because they cannot feel warmth in a place where they are ashamed to stand. They call you arrogant because it is easier than admitting they shrink in your presence. They call you dangerous because the truth you carry is something they've built their entire life to suppress. You hold no weapon in your hand, yet they feel the blade, and it is sharp because it is on it. The mirror you carry is not glass, but something older, older than language, older than guilt. It is the same mirror that kings once feared in the eyes of prophets, the same mirror that thieves avoided in the temples they refused to enter. It does not bend for comfort. It does not soften for their convenience. It shows them only what is there. You've seen the shift 1,000 times, the faint tightening of the mouth, the way their voice changes mid-sentence, the glance to the floor. It is not always conscious. In fact, it rarely is. Something deeper in them registers the danger, because when you are near, their mind begins to stir. The lies they've told themselves that they are good, that they are in control, that they are strong, begin to tremble. It is not you they fear. It is the truth that follows you like a shadow. The truth you don't even need to speak. The truth they feel pressing against the walls they've built around themselves. They will find ways to discredit you. They will whisper to others, planting seeds about your character, your intentions, your energy. They will tell stories that make them feel safe from the image they saw in your presence. And the cruelest part is that you will rarely defend yourself. Not because you are helpless, but because you know you don't need to. The moment they looked into you and saw themselves for what they are, the verdict was sealed. Their campaign against you is not about destroying you. It is about restoring the fiction they were living in before you arrived. In quiet moments, you sometimes wonder why it happened, why rooms grow still, why voices falter, why people's warmth cools when you are near. You've questioned if it's some flaw in you, some social defect, but the longer you have lived in this skin, the more you've seen the pattern. It's not rejection, it's recoil, a reflex, like touching something too hot to hold, and what burns them is not cruelty or malice. It is the sight of themselves without the costume. You have always been the thing they could not dress for, the light they cannot filter. This is why they prefer people who flatter their illusions, those who speak softly, nod on cue, play along with the theater, the ones who keep the mirrors tilted away. Those people are welcomed, they are rewarded, but you do not tilt. You hold the mirror at the perfect, merciless angle, and for that you will be both revered and reviled, respected in the quiet, hated in the open, because the human mind will do anything to avoid the mirror it fears, and if it cannot destroy the reflection, it will try to destroy the one who carries it. The irony is that you never asked for this role. You did not seek to be the confessor of the unwilling. You did not choose to be the moment of reckoning in someone else's carefully scripted life. But roles are not always chosen. Sometimes they are bestowed, and this one was written into your very present. You cannot mute it. You cannot set it down. It arrives before you. It lingers after you leave. It travels with your shadow. To some it will be a gift, to others a curse, but it will always be the truth. They think the power is in avoiding you, in removing you from the picture. What they never understand is that the mirror they run from is not yours, it is theirs. Even when you are gone, they will catch glimpses of it, in the eyes of a stranger, in a moment of solitude, in the stillness of their own thoughts. You were simply the first to hold it steady enough for them to see, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. That is the quiet horror you leave behind, not the memory of you, but the memory of themselves in your presence. So they will avert their gaze, they will shift the conversation, they will excuse themselves from the room, retreat from the connection, distance themselves from the gravity of your present, and you will let them, because you understand something they do not. The mirror is not an enemy, it is a reckoning, and one day, whether by choice or by collapse, they will face it again. When they do, they will remember the first time they felt its weight. They will remember you. But for now, they will keep running. They will hide in noise, in company, in busyness. They will keep the lights dim so their reflection stays soft, and they will tell themselves they have escaped you, that they have escaped the mirror. You will not correct them. You will not pursue them. You will let them believe it, because the truth, the real, silent, unbearable truth, is that you do not have to chase what is already bound to them. You have always known this. That is why you do not plead for understanding. That is why you do not reach out to explain yourself. You let their discomfort speak for you. You let their withdrawal write your testimony. Because you know what they do not. They were never afraid of you. They were afraid of the moment they would have to meet themselves and realize they have been living their whole life avoiding that stranger. And you, without trying, without wanting, without even needing to speak, brought them to that door. You step into the room and the air changes. You do not announce yourself. You do not perform, but the geometry of the space bends subtly, invisibly, to make room for you. Conversations stagger mid-sentence. Eyes hesitate before meeting yours. Somewhere deep in the animal brain, a shift is registered. The predator has arrived, not the loud, snarling kind that bleeds its presence into every corner, but the quiet one, the one whose stillness is more dangerous than a raised blade. You move as if the outcome was decided long before the game began, and they feel it, though they cannot explain why. In the silent arena, words are a liability. Everything you need is already spoken in the way you carry yourself. It is not power they sense. Power can be challenged. It is inevitability, the calm certainty of a tide that will not be stopped, of a shadow that will not be bargained with. You are not competing with them. You have stepped outside the contest entirely. They measure themselves against each other. clawing for inches in petty hierarchies, while you watch from a vantage point they cannot reach. The distance is unbearable for them because it reminds them of what they will never be then, unshaken, unbribed, untamed. And so they watch you in the same way prey watches a fire, hypnotized, unable to decide whether to inch closer or run. They think silence is absence. They are wrong. Silence is a weapon honed sharper than any spoken threat. When you withhold words, you deny them the comfort of knowing where they stand with you. They begin to fill the void with their own fears, their own suspicions, their own guilt. The stillness you project becomes a mirror in which they cannot control what they see. A liar begins to suspect you know the truth. The manipulator wonders if you've spotted the string. The insecure feels every flaw screaming in the quiet between your glances. You do nothing to encourage this. You don't have to. The mind left alone with itself is the most merciless interrogator of all. In this arena, every movement is a statement. You lean back in your chair, unhurried. They notice. You meet a gaze and hold it a second too long. They look away first. You stand when you're ready, not when the timing would be convenient for them. This is the language of dominance without declaration, the strategy of the unseen. And here's the truth. They will never admit aloud they are performing for you. Every argument they make, every nervous laugh, every sideways glance is calibrated by your presence. You have become the silent axis around which their thoughts revolve, the weak attempt to break the tension with noise. They joke too loudly, speak too quickly, force their words into the gaps your quiet has created. They mistake volume for influence, forgetting that the loudest voice is often the most desperate. You remain composed, letting their frantic energy exhaust itself against your immovable stillness. In their desperation to outshine you, they reveal the very vulnerabilities they meant to hide. The boardroom warrior over-explains their point. The schemer contradicts themselves. The insecure ally blurts out what should have been kept hidden. You do not need to set traps. In the silent arena, they build their own. This is not a role you learn. It is something older, something encoded in your marrow, somewhere in your bloodline. Perhaps long before your name was spoken, there were others like you. Leaders who commanded without raising their voice, hunters who knew the value of waiting, watchers who understood that the enemy will show their throat if given enough time. The same instincts guide you now. You have no need to outpace them because you know they will run themselves into the ground trying to outpace you. Patience is not passive. It is a slow tightening of the noose. You have been here before. Maybe not in this room, maybe not in this century, but you know the pattern. At first, they try to draw you into their game. They bait you with provocations, poke at your calm with petty challenges. You don't bite. Then they attempt to ignore you, to pretend your presence is inconsequential, but their glances betray them. Soon they begin recalculating everything they do, subtly shifting to match the rhythm you set. And then, without warning, the balance tips. The moment you've been waiting for arrives. They make the mistake, the misstep, the confession. You watch, and in that instant the unspoken crown is placed on your head. Here in the silent arena, you understand what they never will. Control is not taken by force. It is ceded by those who don't even realize they are giving it away. You are not loud because you do not need to be. You are not quick to strike because you understand that the threat of the strike is often more potent than the blow itself. You are the weight in the air that makes them falter, the steady gaze that turns their confidence brittle. Every silence you hold is a statement. I am not here to meet you on your level. You will rise to mine, or crumble in the attempt. And so you wait. The room hums with the static of unspoken things. They will mistake your quiet for detachment, but the truth is more dangerous. You are cataloging, dissecting, remembering every flicker in their eyes, every tremor in their voice, every slip in their facade is being filed away for the moment when the board shifts and you decide it's time to move. Until then, you let the silence stretch. Let it settle over them like a heavy cloak. Let them feel every second, because in this place victory is not in what you say. It is in how long they can endure the storm that never speaks. You have always known the weight of a moment. Others rush to fill the air with words, terrified of the silence, desperate to be seen as decisive. But you do not fear the pause. You wait, you hold, you let the quiet bloom into something unbearable, until it presses against their ribs and forces them to move first. Patience is not stillness. It is the sharpening of the blade before the strike, the gathering of clouds before the downpour. Every heartbeat in the waiting is a calculation, every glance a measure. You have learned that power is not taken in haste. It is claimed in the exact moment the opponent mistakes your stillness for surrender. They don't understand what you are doing when you watch without speaking. They call it passivity. Disinterest may be arrogance. They whisper that you are disconnected, when in truth you are already inside their defenses, mapping the cracks. Every person who steps into your presence begins to leak their secrets into the space between you. A restless shuffle, an averted gaze, a tightening of the jaw. Their tells spill into the silence like drops of ink in water, and you see the shapes they form long before they do. This is the advantage patience gives you. They play all their cards while thinking you've yet to be dealt yours. Once before you understood, you reacted too quickly. You leapt to defend yourself. You fought in battles not worth winning. You wasted strength on those who only needed to exhaust you. But you have shed that skin. Now you let their own momentum undo them. You watch as they push harder, thinking they are closing in, not realizing they are leaning too far forward, about to tip. You are no longer baited by the heat of the moment, because you know that the one who moves second often moves last. There is a moment you have come to recognize, the slight shift when their certainty begins to dissolve. It comes in the widening of their eyes. You still haven't reacted. In the way they speak faster, as if speed will fill the void you have left unoccupied. They cannot bear to sit in the shadow you cast, because that shadow reflects the truth. They are not in control. They cannot read you, and what they cannot read, they cannot predict, and what they cannot predict, they cannot conquer. You have become fluent in the language of withheld response, a glance that lingers a fraction too long, a breath drawn in but never hurriedly released. These are signals more ancient than speech, the language of predators who survived not by speech, but by certain. You understand that the wild does not reward the loudest roar, but the one who chooses when to reveal its teeth. The lion that paces does not need to prove it is king. It needs only to whip until the prey dares to turn its back. Your patience is not kind. It is not generosity. It is the patience of the archer who has already measured the wind, already drawn the bow, and waits only for the target to step into the kill zone. You do not strike because they demand it. You strike because the moment demands it, and the moment will always come. Until then, you let them speak. You let them reveal. You let them believe they are drawing you into their web, when in truth they are winding the rope around their own neck. And they will always speak. They will fill the space with explanations, justifications, provocations. They will poke at you, trying to stir you, because in their world, the one who reacts first wins. But you are not from their world anymore. You belong to the place between breaths, the unmeasured seconds where fear blooms. You know that each word they spill without you answering is a crack widening in their own armor. You know that the silence is not empty. It is heavy with the weight of everything they wish you would say, everything they fear you are thinking. There is an art to this waiting. It is not laziness, not absence. It is presence distilled to something unbearable. You do not wander in your mind while they flail. You remain anchored, locked, unblinking in your focus. You see them entirely. You feel the tremor in their words. You catch the way their pulse rises in their throat. You watch as they begin to negotiate with themselves in real time. Perhaps you are harmless. Perhaps you are calculate. Perhaps you know something they do not. And in this uncertainty, they begin to betray themselves. They don't realize how much they are giving you. The way a hunter learns the terrain by standing still, you have learned the terrain of their mind. You see where the ground is soft, where it will give way under pressure. You see the paths they take when they think no one is watching. You see the tells they believe are invisible. And when you do move, it will not be a guess. It will be a certainty. The move will already be decided before your hand even lifts. Patience is also refusal. Refusal to dance to their tempo. Refusal to explain yourself before you choose. Refusal to be herded into the trap of their urgency. You let them rush ahead, knowing speed is its own snare. They burn their energy trying to force the pace, while you conserve yours coiled in the center. By the time they realize they have exhausted themselves, you are still standing, still watching, unspent, and then you take the step they never saw coming. Sometimes the strike is not even visible. It is the word spoken at the exact second their voice faltered. It is the decision made after they've revealed their entire plan. It is the silence held until the deal collapses in their own hands. You don't need to crush them with force. You only need to let gravity finish what they began. In this way you do not break them. They break themselves against the wall you have become. You have learned that there is a deeper current beneath every exchange, and it flows toward the one who can endure the longest without flinching. They think endurance is a matter of strength. They are wrong. Endurance is a matter of vision, of seeing the end before the beginning has even finished. You wait because you have already seen the end. You wait because you know it is coming to. And when it does, when the final opening appears and the entire board tilts in your favor, it will look to them like fate, like inevitability, like something they could never have stopped. They will not see the hours, the stillness, the breath held in the dark. They will only see the moment you moved, and by then it will be too late. You will already be past them, walking in the calm wake of a storm they never even saw until it swallowed them whole. They always hold on longer than they should. They pretend the weight of your presence doesn't press against their ribs, that your gaze doesn't strip the lacquer from their carefully painted masks. At first they act as if nothing has shifted, laughing the same way, speaking in the same tone, moving with the same familiar gesture. But beneath the surface, a hairline fracture has already formed. You can see it in the slight tightening of their jaw, in the way their words begin to feel rehearsed. They are not defending against you. They are defending against the version of themselves that only appears when you are near. That shadow version terrifies them more than you ever could, and no matter how skilled they are at hiding it, the pressure is unrelenting. The breaking point never arrives with the thunder they expect. It comes like frost, quiet, creeping, irreversible. One day, a simple glance from you makes them fumble their words. Another day, your silence stretches just long enough to force their confession. They tell on themselves without meaning to, sometimes in a flash of anger, sometimes in an overcompensating laugh that rings too sharp. You stand there unmoving, as their composure bleeds out in front of you, and in that moment, you realize something essential. You never had to strike. You simply had to remain, like a tide that carves stone without ever lifting a weapon. Some break in public, where their unraveling is witnessed by those they've sought to impress. A comment aimed at you comes out clumsy and bitter, revealing more about their insecurity than their wit. They will feel the room tilt away from them and toward you, as if even the air is choosing sides. Others break in the shadow. They retreat from your orbit without explanation, fabricating reasons to avoid you, telling themselves they're too busy, too distracted, too indifferent. But you know it is not busyness. It is not indifference. It is escape. You learn to read the different species of collapse. There is the brittle snap, the sudden eruption when they can no longer contain. They might accuse you of things you've never done, or question motives you've never had. This is not logic speak. It is the voice of a mind cornered by its own reflection. Then there is the quiet folding, the slow, almost graceful withdrawal into distance. They will leave your messages unanswered, your presence unacknowledged. This is the retreat of someone who has realized they cannot win a war they never understood. Sometimes the break is disguised as benevolence. They will compliment you too much, agree with you too quickly, praise you in ways you'll off. It is a preemptive surrender, an attempt to soften the imagined blow they leave is coming. But the most dangerous break is the one that hardens them, the one where fear turns into strategy. They will speak against you in rooms you are not in, seed doubts in minds you haven't touched, bend narratives so subtly that others begin to question what they once knew about you. These are the monsters who learned they could not confront you directly, so they to fight you in the shadow. Yet even then you feel no urge to chase them. Their fear is not your burden to carry. You do not need to prove innocence where their accusations take root, because the truth is older than both of. Fear will always devour itself. The more they whisper, the more their own bitterness poisons them. The more they scheme, the more they step into traps they've set for you. You are not their execution, they are. It would be easier if their breaking was always clean, but it rarely is. Sometimes they oscillate between defiance and retreat, hating the way they still measure themselves against. Their anger will find strange channels, sudden hostility over nothing, refusal to acknowledge your contributions, or deliberate acts meant to undermine you in trivial ways. These are not victories for them. These are symptoms, signs that you have taken residence somewhere they cannot evict you from the architecture of their mind. When they break, it is not because you exposed them. It is because you refused to look away when they were already exposed. You did not flinch when they showed you the ugliest part of themselves. You did not reassure them with comforting lies. You let the truth sit there, between you in its unmovable silence, and they could not bear it, so they broke themselves against it. Over time, you stop seeing their collapse as conflict. It becomes a kind of inevitability. Those who are not ready to face themselves will always break in your presence. It is not a question of if, but when. And when it happens, you will stand exactly as you did before, not chasing, not correcting, not even celebrating, because you understand the quiet law that governs all of this. You were never the enemy, you were only the mirror, and they could not survive their own reflection. You never asked for the weight that follows you. You never sought the invisible crown that rests unshakable above your head, and yet everywhere you go, it is there. A presence older than your name, heavier than your footsteps, more permanent than your reflection. They don't see you as a person anymore. You've become a symbol, a disruption to the balance they cling to, the fracture in the facade they swore would never crack. You didn't seize a throne. It was forced beneath you the moment you stopped asking for permission to exist. That was the turning point, the day you stopped shrinking to fit into their comfort. The day you allowed your silence to speak louder than their demands. The crown found you. It did not glitter. It was forged from every betrayal you endured, every quiet humiliation you swallowed, every moment you chose restraint over reaction. A crown of tempered steel, cold to the touch, unshaken by their applause or their scorn. Before you mistook their discomfort for misunderstanding, you thought, perhaps, if you explained yourself more clearly, they would soften. If you proved you meant no harm, they would welcome you. But power is never about intent, it is about presence. And your presence does not bend, it doesn't dilute to ease the fragile, it doesn't dim to let others shine without shadow. So they made you into something dangerous in their stories, because they needed to believe their unease had a villain. They whispered to each other in the corners you never occupied, warning of you without ever naming what you'd done. But deep down they know the truth. Your only crime was standing where they could not, unafraid to be seen without armor. They will tell themselves you wanted this power, that you schemed for it, that you manipulated the room into tilting your way. But in the quiet between their words, they know they are lying. You never chased control. You simply stopped giving it away. The irony is that by refusing to play their game, you won it. By stepping outside their hierarchy, you became the axis it turned on. Now when you walk in, they read the air before they read your face. They adjust their tone without knowing why. They measure their words against your silence. You did not demand the throne, but the moment you stopped bowing, it rose to meet you. And so you sit in a position you never auditioned for, a seat you never petitioned to fill. It is not comfort you feel there, it is vigilance, because you know this seat is not padded with luxury. It is carved from the bones of everything you've survived. The throne you hold is not in the center of a court, but at the edge of a battlefield. You can still hear the echo of every voice that told you to stay small, to be agreeable, to be predictable. You can still smell the smoke of bridges they burned in your name when you walked away. You didn't fight them for their approval. You fought to keep your own reflection intact. And somewhere in that struggle, they began to fear you. They fear you because you answer to something older than their authority. You carry an allegiance not to the shifting rules of their world, but to a code that hums in your bones. It is the kind of loyalty that cannot be bought, the kind of self-possession that cannot be negotiated. They cannot figure out where your permission comes from, and it terrifies. They think power is given by titles, by recognition, by the clapping hands of the crowd. You are proof it can be claimed without any of that. And so your existence is a quiet rebellion against the order they depend on. But power has a price, and you've paid it. You've paid it in isolation, in the knowledge that few can stand at your side without eventually revealing themselves. You've paid it in the long silences after doors closed, when you realized you'd been exiled from circles you never wanted to belong to in the first place. You've paid it in the hollow eyes of those who used to see you as harmless, until they caught their reflection in your gaze. And yet, the price has not broken. If anything, it has etched you deeper into the rope you never asked for. The less you chase approval, the more the throne becomes immovable beneath. You've learned that survival in this position is not about defending the seat, but about guarding the silence that keeps it sacred. You speak when it matters. You move when the shift will be felt. You let them wonder what calculations live behind your stillness. The truth is simpler than they could accept. You are not calculating, you are watching the horizon. You are reading the weather of a room before a storm they don't even sense is coming. You are already 3 moves beyond the conversation at hand, not because you seek advantage, but because you know instinctively that survival is never in the present moment. It's in the unseen future. And as they speculate, as they circle you with wary politeness, they fail to see the truth. The throne is not a seat at all. It's a vantage point. It's the height from which you see the patterns they can't, the web of motives they think are invisible. It is the place from which you watch empires crumble, not from the strike of an enemy, but from the rot they refuse to name in themselves. And when those collapses come, they will not blame the rot. They will blame the one who was already standing when the dust settled. They will blame you. But there is a strange peace in knowing that their blame cannot touch you. You were never theirs to understand, and you were never theirs to forgive. The crown they think you wear is not a burden you balance. It is the natural shape of your spine after years of refusing to bow. It is not jeweled. It does not gleam. It is forged from patience, from grief, from the cold clarity of seeing the world as it is rather than as it pretends to be. And while they may never say it aloud, they know your presence does not beg, it does not perform, it simply rules whether the court kneels or not. The throne you didn't ask for will never leave you now. It walks ahead of you like your shadow at sunset, long before your body arrives. It bends the air around you. It forces truth from liars. It makes the monsters in the room glance over their shoulder before they dare to speak. And the longer you sit with it, the more you realize it was never about them fearing you. It was about them fearing the day they would no longer be able to pretend you weren't already there.